Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This time I'm going to show you how to complete the Phenomenon Intel questline in the Junon area. This questline marks the return of the Fort Condor minigame that returns from Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode Intermission, the Yuffie DLC. It works mostly the same, but with some key changes, which we will go over. There are a total of 4 boards in the Junon area. And there's also a hard mode. Once you finish them all, I'll have a guide for that very soon. I have managed to complete it. So the first one can be found in sort of like the southwest corner of Junon. The first 3 are really easy to find. It's the 4th one that gave me some trouble, but I'll show you the full path to that one, just in case you're looking for it. The other 3 are just in some regular ruins. You just need the chocobo, climb some walls, you're good to go. Okay, so Fort Condor in Rebirth has a key difference. Instead of having spells, like in the Yuffie DLC, you now have hero units. So the way this works is you have 3 different combinations of hero units and 4 different boards, or 4 different loadouts of characters, figures, whatever you want to call them, that you can put onto the board. For this first game, I'm going to use the combination 1-1, so first preset hero units, which is Cloud and Barret, and then first preset of ally units. We have an infinite number of vanguards, 2 elite vanguards, an infinite number of rangers, 2 elite rangers, infinite enforcers, 2 elite enforcers, and 2 clerics. So the way Fort Condor works is you need to place pieces on the board. Now, pieces have 4 different types. So you have attackers, or melee, range, and defense. Melee is the sword, range is the bow and arrow, defense is the shield, and each one has a different weakness that you can exploit. So if you look in the top right corner, right near the timer, you can see a little flow chart. So the shield is good against the sword is good against the bow, and the bow is good against the shield. Now this cuts both ways. So luckily, your enemy will always place units in the same order every single time, at least per board. So in this first board here, if you look on the right, you can see that coming up in the right lane is going to be 2 shields, followed by a 3rd shield. I don't know all the unit names, but the reason you want to keep an eye on that tracker on the right is because you want to strategically counter those units as they come. Now, the other really important thing with Fort Condor is that you have these choke points in the lanes. So you have this sort of rubble in the middle, and then you have choke points on either side. This is good and bad. It's good because that is where you can go to stop your opponent's units from reaching your base. However, because it's a choke point, if one of the units has AoE attacks, it's going to attack everything in that choke point, and you can wind up killing yourself very, very easily. This isn't so important for this first board. This first board, you can kind of just mess around and just counter the shields with bow and arrow, and then counter the defense with range, counter the defense with range, the melee with defense, and then the range with melee. So you can kind of just focus on that. I did mention a 4th unit type, and that is the no unit type. So if you look on the bottom of my list of units there, on the left we have the cleric. There is no type to that unit. Clerics have no type, and then the siege weapons have no type. So we have trebuchets as well as ballista. I'm going to use those a little later on, but that's the 4th enemy type. It is not weak to anything. It is not strong against anything. They are just support units. They never have much health. As you can see there, that sweeper just obliterated my cleric. And if you noticed, it was with a flame attack, and that flame attack is an AoE. So if you were in a choke point and a bunch of units are in front of that enemy, they're all going to take damage. And so you want to be very, very mindful of what units you are sending out. And the reason for that is because you don't want to accidentally queue it up to where you have a bunch of units that are weak to the incoming AoE type, and they all just get obliterated, and it's a complete waste of your units. Now, the way the hero units work in this version of Fort Condor is, if you look on the top, I have Cloud and Barret. Barret is a range, Cloud is defense. The more units of that type that you put on the board, the more their meter fills. So you can see Cloud's meter is almost filled. It's around his portrait. Barrett's was already filled, so I was able to press L1 and then summon Barrett. Every time you summon a hero unit, they do a big attack, and they also have their own type. So Cloud is a defense type, Barrett is a range type. So if you have a choke point with a bunch of enemies, as you can see here, I have a few sword enemies on the right there. I'm going to let these units clear them out, but what you could do is if you have them all on a choke point, you can summon your hero unit to just obliterate them all when they come out. You want to be a little careful of that because it won't always work, but it's a pretty viable strategy. So that's the first board. I kind of messed around there just to kind of show you, like, you could really do the first board however you want. Just focus on learning the counters, and as long as you do it within the 3-minute limit, you're okay. The base really doesn't counterattack that much, so you should be fine. Okay, location number 2. This is the second board. I'm going to use the same exact combo. I'm going to use Hero Preset 1 and Ally Preset 1 as well. You can see our enemy has a pretty balanced offering of units. They have a full board. This is where things kind of begin to heat up. And you can see that the base has changed. So you have the 2 eagles on either side, or the 2 condors on either side, and then you have this robot in the middle. That robot does not have a unit type, which is helpful, but it does have a gun, so you got to be careful with that. It does have a bit of a range. It's more like a melee range, but you just don't want to put a bunch of enemies right in the middle of it, otherwise it's going to take them out. You can see it's shooting the cannons over there, but it's not reaching my shield enemy that's attacking the Condor. So on the right side, we have a range followed by a no unit type. This is a really good opportunity for me to explain to you what these wolves do. So you're going to notice on the right-hand side, a wolf just got dropped by the enemy. That wolf will ignore every single unit, including your own. It will never attack your unit. Instead, it goes straight for your base. There is no counter to this. You just have to either choke it and just have some units lined up to take it out, or you could just let it come in. If your side towers drop, it's not really that big of a deal. The game only ends when your base is destroyed, your middle Condor, or the timer runs out. So even if your side towers fall, it's completely fine. All it really does is move the line of scrimmage back, and it allows enemies to get in quicker, but you don't have to freak out if that tower drops. Okay, so as you can see here, I lined up all these enemies. Cloud is out now, and that big AoE just killed one of the units and dealt a bunch of damage. So what I'm going to prioritize now is I'm going to prioritize dropping range units. This way I can get Barrett on the board. Again, this is only level 2. This is on normal difficulty. You don't have to be that precise. Just continue trying to learn the counters, and you should be okay. Now, one thing that I really recommend, and you'll see me do this later on, is if you have tanky units moving up, highly, highly recommend having a cleric follow behind to keep them alive. Now, unfortunately, the cleric really doesn't have much health, so you want to be very careful with how you're positioning the cleric on spawn. You want to spawn it a ways behind the units. This way, when they reach the enemy, they will stop, and then the cleric stops a little ways behind them. The reason that's important is because, like I said before, you do not want the cleric to get sucked into that AoE damage and die in one hit and never get a heal off. It's very, very important you learn how to time your unit placement. It's not just about zerging the enemy and putting everything on the board as quickly as possible. You do have to pay attention to the strategy. As you can see here on the right-hand side, there are no new units spawning, so we have about a minute to take out the remaining units. We do have this sort of Zapdos-looking bird upstairs. You do not need to worry about that, because if you place Barrett, it'll basically one-shot it, but only range units are able to shoot that thing down. That said, it's generally worth having a cleric behind them. But as long as you clear out those units, you have plenty of time to clear them out and then get to the boss. It does have an AoE defense ability, so if you have units choked up there, it can be a little dangerous. All right, so for level 3, this one is on this mountain here. The way to get here is using the boat that you see sort of crashed against the South Island near that Chocobo stop. That's the path. There's just a road that kind of goes through that boat, and then you go up the mountain with your Chocobo, and then you'll find a Chocobo stop, and then a really long drawbridge, and the board is at the end of the drawbridge. Okay, so I'm going to be using the combo 1-2. So hero unit 1, ally unit 2, and as you can see, the captain or the princess is in another castle, but that base has a cannon on it, and so that thing has huge range. It's really important that you strategically play this one out. This one took me a while. So I start by having trebuchets parked a little ways in front of the side condors in the choke lane. And the reason that we want to do this is because the boss has these really big yet slow units. And so you can land a couple of trebuchet shots, especially if you place a attack unit or really any unit and get in its face, and then that will just hold that enemy in place, and then the trebuchet just unloads. Now, you'll notice that the base can shoot my unit as soon as I cross the line of scrimmage, and as soon as I get into what is technically their territory, that base will begin firing. Now, luckily, my trebuchet killed the wolf just as it spawned. The trebuchets on normal difficulty have a huge range. They're really, really good. Don't sleep on them. The ballista, I'm not a huge fan of. I can never really find a way to get them to work, or work effectively, I should say. But the trebuchet, it's really, really good. So, as you can see, with the strategy that I employed at the very beginning, the line of scrimmage is now completely moved up. I am already in this base, and I'm already on the offensive. So what's going to happen here is this unit is probably going to die, but that's okay. I've already done a lot of damage to that left tower. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to quickly counter whatever is in this base, because I can tell that there is a Condor or Zapdos spawning, followed by 2 melee units. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to begin to counter the melee units. So unfortunately, the Zapdos pushed all the way into my base because it had a free lane, and now what that means is the line of scrimmage is all the way back in my base, and unfortunately, I cannot place units in the opponent's base. So that line of scrimmage is always determined by your enemy. It's not necessarily determined by you. If your enemy is in your base, even if you have units in your enemy's base, you cannot place new units in their base. It's kind of a difficulty spin on this that I'm not a gigantic fan of, but it's okay. Okay, so you can see here I have a sweeper and then 2 defense enemies moving in. Luckily, they were able to break through, and then once this bird goes down, we'll be able to push the line of scrimmage up, and then we can get our hero units on the board. We're quickly running out of time, though, and unfortunately, when you are spawning your hero unit, the time does not slow down. So we have a Helitrooper on the right there. That will be dealt with pretty quickly. I do have 3 units on it, and luckily there's a shield enemy in front, and then I have 2 archers behind. That is dealing a decent amount of damage to it. It is just a slow process. But now that it's down, we can begin moving into this base. You can see on the right-hand side, there are no new units spawning. We just have to deal with the base. Sadly, the enforcers, or the defense enemies, are quite slow, but it's generally a good idea to have them in front. Okay, here we go. The line of scrimmage is in the base. We're just going to spawn Cloud and then bring down the Hell House. This base does have a defense mechanism, and it will begin to shoot out fire. So if you're in that base for too long, things can go awry. You need to whittle that down with range damage. Okay, so for the 4th and final board on normal difficulty, we're going to start at this chocobo stop here, and I'm going to show you the full path. This one is really, really hidden, and there's no real reason for you to ever come to this part of the map. This was the final thing I did in Junon area, and I didn't realize that I hadn't discovered this area yet. There is a treasure cache. There's actually 2 treasure caches along this route. I'm going to cut them out. It's just 2 chests each. They are not very hidden, so you should be fine. Using your chocobo, you want to climb these walls, and then we are going to take a really nice scenic pathway up this mountain. Just as an aside, every time I'm in this world, I just cannot believe this game exists. It's incredible to me. I first played this game, or first played the original, in 1998 in 4th or 5th grade, and this is exactly what I wanted out of the Junon area. I hope we can go to Fort Condor in this game at some point. I haven't gotten there yet, but if it exists in this game, I cannot wait. It seems to be visible in the distance at various points of Junon Harbor. All right, so My controller battery goes low there. Believe it or not, it lasts a good while longer, another couple hours that controller lasted. But we're going to come up here, and then there's a somewhat hidden path along this waterfall. So we're going to go to the left here. Sorry for the cut there. I actually went right and then kind of got lost, but you want to go left, cross this log bridge, and then begin going up this wall. I really do wish you can climb these walls a little faster. It seems a little too slow. I'm going to show you the chocobo stop right here. It is directly to the left along this path. Just follow the little chocobo chick, pull up the sign, and that's probably your last chocobo stop of the region. All right, so once you have that, we're going to continue back along the path. I just want to make sure to include that just because you will have to come back here at some point if you want to do the hard mode stuff, which, again, I'll have a guide for. We're going to come up this wall, and then the second treasure cache is up here. There's a little campsite. That's actually where I thought the Fort Condor board was going to be, so that's why I went in there. But it's just 2 treasure chests really quick. It's just, unfortunately, a gigantic wall. All right, come up here, and then we're going to go up this wall next. Luckily, this one's a bit shorter. All right, and then if you go straight ahead, that is where the treasure cache is. Like I said, just crow's camp, just 2 chests, no big deal. Once you're done, head out, turn left, and then go up this final wall, and then we're going to cross a really big rope bridge with our chocobo. There will be another... sorry, there's not a cache over there, but there is a hidden item there that you can sniff out with your chocobo. Nothing too major. I think it's just an ether onion. But this is the Encampment Vestiges phenomenon intel, and this is where the 4th and final board is. Okay, so this board took me a really, really long time to figure out. This is really difficult, and it's just a taste of hard mode. So my combo here is 1-2, Hero Unit 1, Board 2, or Unit Set 2. You'll notice here that I am waiting, and that is very, very deliberate. I'm going to place a trebuchet just in front of the Condor and then lay down a sentry. That is going to block the incoming melee, but that melee has a cleric behind it. That trebuchet position will destroy the cleric in 1 hit. So you want to spawn a melee attacker on the left to take care of that range. There will be a wolf coming in, but if you time it correctly, you can kill the mage or the cleric and the wolf at the same time with the trebuchet, and then that begins to open up the base. But this is going to take the full time. We are nowhere close to done yet. All right, so we're going to begin spawning a range unit on the left there. This way we can start to take out this shield enemy. My defense unit on the right dies there. It's completely fine. As you can tell, the boss has range attacks, but he actually changes type once you reach him, and he will continue to change type and continue to counter you. So it's very, very important that you follow this strategy. Keep spawning range units on the left, and then I'm going to do my best to spawn a range unit on the right, and then hope to God that it stops that Zapdos in the correct position for my trebuchet, and then it will begin dealing damage to it. Okay, so my archers here have moved up. The trebuchet is hitting. I'm putting a cleric behind the archers on the left to keep them alive. Unfortunately, it just keeps walking because it's trying to get in range of that Condor unit. The Zapdos went down, which is really, really nice. That's really hard to time. Just try your best. Get used to the timing of that trebuchet. It is a really long windup, but getting that Zapdos off the field is really, really important because you can begin to get your units out of the choke points. So we've already destroyed the Condor on the left. Unfortunately, the boss can deal tons of range damage with its blade, or it's sort of like Yasuo from League of Legends. Like, it just has a tornado. It can kill clerics in basically 1 hit. So we are trying to just stay within this line of scrimmage, but just beware, there will be more units spawning on the left. And so we have this really big gargantuan guy. You'll see that I put a trebuchet in this specific spot that will pepper the boss with boulders, and the boss won't be able to reach it from that position. Very, very important that you tuck it as far back as possible. This way you can get it dealing damage to the boss. It's landing perfectly right there. All right, so on the right side, our cleric is still alive, but unfortunately a wolf has spawned and it has gotten through the choke point. I'm not super concerned about that though, because the Condor will be able to kill it in just a couple hits. If you are feeling really nervous, what you can do is place an attack unit back there, but I really don't recommend it because you're going to need everything for this boss. Okay, so we're going to put another defender here. The cleric has died. I have one left, but I'm going to put one more range unit there. The trebuchet already has the boss down to about 60% health. You saw there it changed types. It is now a melee type. It will continue to change types as you are fighting it. We have 20 seconds left, not even. This is going to come down to the wire, but this is the strategy that worked for me. So since it is a melee type, I'm going to spawn Cloud because the defense counters the shield. So spawn both your hero units. Make sure you summon the one that counters first. I should have done that backwards, but luckily I got it in time. But that is the strategy. It's all about that trebuchet timing. It is a really hard board, and it will take you a while. You have to work on countering your opponent as the units are coming in. Learn to wait, because again, you don't want units to move into the choke point and get AoE down. Sometimes you want to let them come into your base just a few steps, because the enemy boss unit has big range, and once you're in their area, they can start to kill you. So sometimes it's worth just bringing enemy units, letting them in just to counter them and get through, and then move the line of scrimmage up yourself. I hope this has been helpful. For Condor is all about countering. You have that flow chart on the screen at all times, but it is a difficult minigame. It was difficult in intermission, and it's difficult here, and this is an even hard mode. The hard mode guide is next. But that's it. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. The links for those are in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.